think we might have made the podcast too fun. I think we need to make them boring again.
How are we going to do that?
Well, do you know we have to meta-editorialise on this one? Do you know that?
Sorry?
We have to meta-editorialise on this one.
We have to editorialise on the editorial.
Yeah, both the editorials have now, they've done too well. They've expanded outside the normal audience and they're now below the threshold.
They're doing too good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me intro again, but more boringly,
yeah.
in the hopes that it turns people off. Hello and welcome to Editorial, the podcast where we talk about everything we got wrong. I'm Jack Kelly and I'm joined by Zach Michaelis.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Very well, actually.
Good.
Yeah, I'm very happy at the moment.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't really know why, but I am very happy.
Okay, good. Summer's over, so I feel like I'm
it's a sunny day today.
Downhill.
You know, I woke. This is so boring, but this is the editorial. I was going to say no one watches, but we thumbed the last two so aggressively that people have watched.
It's annoying.
Scary. I woke up at literally 4:30 this morning, but because baby means I go to sleep at 9. So I actually it was quite lovely. I still got some work done.
You were messaging the Americans about the debate.
Yeah, I was, and then I got some work done, and the baby woke up at she did really well. She went to bed at 6, and then woke
congrats.
up at 6:10.
Is she watching?
Yeah, well done, Margot.
Thank you.
She woke up at 6:10, and that means that they got a whole lot of work done. Then you get a bit fuggy. Perfectly timed.
Sure.
Hang out with the baby for a bit.
Love it.
Have a little chit chat. Do some more work. Yeah, and then the sun had come out. It was lovely.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was
joyous.
Cute. Yeah.
We're editorializing.
We
We're
are.
obviously talking about all the videos that have fallen below our acceptable like-dislike threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Those videos are primarily other episodes of the editorial,
Yeah.
a handful of US videos and some UK videos, right?
Yeah.
How do we want to tackle them? What order?
Should we go? Why don't we do the easiest channel first, and then
Yeah.
go move along? I actually think the easiest is the EU, and then I think it's probably global because it's mostly covered by talking about the US content, and then I think UK because there's actually quite a lot of videos on UK, which is rare for us. UK videos are normally almost universally well received. Quite a lot that have fallen below the threshold, and then finally
We'll get meta. This is how you keep people. This is how you get the watch time.
editorialize squared. That's for the real diehard fans out there. So yeah, EU in broad strokes, there was one video that fell below the like-dislike ratio. Before we do that one, that's the Spain one. There's also a little mistake technically in the Germany video.
Okay.
The Germany one is about the state election results in Thuringia and Saxony. And that is that because it's what you do at the national level, we keep on saying the CDU or CSU on the thing. But the reason we say that for national level is because it's, the Christian Democrats are the Christian Democrat Union.
Yeah.
The CDU in basically every state, and then the CSU in Bavaria. And so obviously in these particular states, it's just the CDU.
Got it.
Yeah, so it is technically a mistake though, so I apologise for that, sorry. And then the one video is Spain, which had a like-dislike about 95, so still very high. It's about why Spain's socialists have U-turn on immigration. And the point that people seem to be making here was that we understated the fact that the reason that Spain previously had very positive attitudes toward immigration because the majority of immigrants at the time were from Latin America. And now they're from basically North Africa, and the claim is that Spaniards have different attitudes to different types of migration.
Sure.
I think we do mention this, by the way. We don't mention it as one of the big three reasons, but this is mentioned, and because there's some polling talking about it. But the other thing I'd say is I think that this is maybe we could have made more of it, but I think in some sense this is oversimplified because there's a sort of meme that Spain only took in Latin American migrants for the 2000s and 2010s, which isn't quite true. I mean, Spain always had a pretty large Moroccan diaspora and also a very large Chinese diaspora. And again, Spaniards were sort of overwhelmingly, well, at least relative to the rest of Europe, very positively predisposed towards those communities. But maybe we could have made more of that. It's not like a conscious bias on our point, and we do mention it in the video, to be fair. So I don't think there's anything to apologise for there, but I think that is the explanation.
Okay.
Then let's do global. So before we do the thing that we're going to cover in broad strokes is the US content, because basically every US video, and I think we've mentioned this on previous editorials, has a lower like-dislike ratio than the normal video.
Yeah.
But there is one other video that actually still has a 97% like-dislike ratio, but there is a glaring error in it, and it's my fault, so I just want to apologise for it. It's in the Australia video, why Australia's economy is doing surprisingly badly. It's one of those classic mistakes where it's early on in the videos. Everyone nails you for it.
We didn't use a map of Austria by mistake or something, did we?
No, that would have been funny. It's that we say Australia earned its nickname as the lucky country in the 60s because it was sort of abundant natural resources. And that is not really true, basically. I mean, basically, it comes from this quote from this book by an Australian author where what he's actually saying is that sort of it's partly to do with natural resources, but it's more that it's just brute luck and that Australian politicians have proven reliably incompetent, but Australia has still sort of, its economy has sort of skyrocketed. So he's not making the point quite the one we were making. Do you see what I mean? Like his is more about, I was more about the sort of the natural resource and all that sort of shenanigans.
And he was like, he's even luckier than that. Like even if you ignore the natural resources,
he's just saying,
still so lucky.
Useless politicians, but they keep doing well.
Okay.
And
I don't know your Australian politicians watching this video. I'm so upset.
That's what a bloke in the 60s said. I'm not endorsing that.
Good.
But the sticking true to our stance for neutrality.
Yeah.
Be terrifying
just some
mistake.
bloke, not even naming it.
Imagining Albanese just furiously disliking this video.
We now have more than 7 viewers now, so you can't guarantee he's not watching.
There was one, the last one, when I said, sorry, Victor. And you said, oh no, he watches. And someone commented being like, how do you know? So I don't want to diss whoever that was.
Very funny.
But it did make me laugh. I did because I'm all about actually watching it.
He's a big fan.
He
subscribed to Too Long.
Just to burn it every time he receives it. So that's the one video on global that, apart from the US content, had a slightly lower dislike ratio. I'd say about half the content on the global at the moment, though, is US election related. And
understandably so.
It's true that basically every single video there has a like-dislike ratio below threshold. So the threshold is like 96.5. The US content, I would say most of it hovers around 94, which might not sound that bad, but that actually is pretty bad by our standards. I mean, for context, if you put up a video on UK that ends up with a 94 like-dislike ratio,
that would be a massive talking point.
Something would be wrong.
Yeah.
Something would be appallingly wrong. And all the videos that we're going to talk about in UK, none of them are that low. Maybe one, but it's the economy one, and it's still above that, still 95. Sure. And some of the US content, by the way, is significantly lower. So, in broad terms, the 3 reasons Kamala can still beat Trump and the 3 reasons Trump can beat Kamala, they're both about 94. I think it's worth saying to long-time viewers who recognize that format of video, for a while we've done these sort of 3 reasons. The original thinking was that it gives you just a bit more time to do a 2 sides thing, because our videos are sort of quite formulaically 1,200 words, and that just means that there's not enough space to go into depth about the arguments for and against.
If you're doing 6 arguments, 3 on each side, that's barely 100 words per argument.
Yeah,
you've included intro and conclusion and promo.
I think the rationale, that is a fine rationale, but in practice it just means that we end up having 2 videos that just feel partisan, and they don't really feel they feel slightly incongruous with the rest of the content, I feel. I mean, they don't do that well views-wise, to be frank, and that's always a variable when we're deciding what sort of content to put out. So we're not going to do any more of those 3 reasons.
We're retiring the format.
We're retiring the format. In future, I guess if we're going to do something that requires that sort of that much analysis, we'll just have to do a longer video and take a bit more time with the animators.
Luckily, every single one of our videos will still include the phrase, as far as we see it, there are 3 reasons for it. So the 3 reasons aren't dead. We should clickbait that on the thumbnail. TLDR kills 3 reasons.
Yeah, I was pretty happy. I did 2 reasons today.
Did you really?
Yeah, I know. I was desperate for a third. I just couldn't find it.
Really?
It was the iPhone one. Only 2 reasons. Yeah, and it could have done 3, but I just felt, 2, why not?
Treat them.
Spice it up a little bit. Anyway, so those videos, both about 94%. Similarly, the one that came out today, Trump loses the debate, what next? 94.2 right now. That's been hovering around that mark for the last couple of hour or so. Why US politicians don't care about the deficit anymore? That has 97%. That's a more technical video. I think that sort of makes sense. But why Trump has sort of overtaken Harris has 88.6.
Yeah, it's one of the most controversial of the year, probably.
It is.
We should do that as an end of year rundown of the most controversial 10 videos of the year.
Yeah, I think there's actually that much to say about it.
It'd be fun, though.
It would be fun.
Could you guess them?
Terrifying if there was an editorial on that list. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be a fun guessing game. Get all the writers in.
Yeah.
Christmas special.
For real diehard fans of the editorial. Yeah, I think in most of these cases, there's not actually much to apologise for.
Yes.
It's just that these are sort of partisan topics, and there's a lot of passion on either side, and so if anything even feels slightly biased towards one candidate or the other, it just sort of invites a flurry of dislikes from the other side. It's similar with actually any content that's on a very controversial topic. I mean, we've said similar things about Israel-Palestine.
Yeah.
Again, you're just sort of, you guarantee yourself a number of dislikes from the extremes on both sides. I think that there is a recurring criticism of our coverage, which is that we lean too heavily to the Nate Silver aggregator.
Yeah. We do.
I think this is exactly. I'm going to say yes. I apologise, and I think we could branch out. My wariness, though, is that actually, and there's no way of answering this question totally, but he just does have the best reputation in lots of ways, and the other aggregators aren't as well renowned. So I think that the people often cite, so Real Clear Politics, I think, is widely considered quite simple. The way it weights different pollsters is not considered particularly nuanced. And 538, which is obviously where Nate Silver was, 538 did have quite an impressive reputation for a while, but that has waned over time. And more recently, they've had to admit that there was some stuff that was just frankly awry with their model, and they've had to readjust it. I can't remember what the specific instance was, but the TLDR there is that actually the 538 model, there have been questions about it for a while, and they've now sort of at least implicitly admitted that there was something not quite up to scratch with it. And so that sort of undermines their credibility in that respect.
Which leaves us with Nate Silver.
The FT as well have a good model, obviously. The Economist have a model. The reason we sort of lean into the Silver stuff is he's one of the only people who has not just a model about the sort of headline polling, but a model about sort of predicted odds of winning the Electoral College. Which is just very useful. I think it's especially for international viewers who don't necessarily intuitively appreciate the effect of the Electoral College and might see that
most useful.
Exactly, and might see that headline polling sort of assume that Canada was definitely going to win. She's got a 3-4 point lead.
Well, as we discussed in that video, you need a fairly big lead as a Democrat to win right now.
Yeah. So I do apologise, and I guess I haven't really made my mind up on this, and maybe in future I think maybe we'll also talk a bit more about other well-renowned aggregators, but I still think we'll lean pretty heavy on the Silver stuff. Just because, again, for those two reasons. I mean, one, he's regarded as one of the best around. Maybe that's not fair. If you disagree, please just tell me in the comments, and I'll read them and maybe try and amend my opinions accordingly. But that also, he just does provide that chance of winning in November, the chance of winning the Electoral College, that sort of data, which is hard to come by otherwise. So yeah, and in that video, by the way, that has a very low like-dislike ratio, one of the main criticisms we're relying too heavily on the Silver stuff, because it's the Trump overtakes Harris thing, and when we say overtakes in sort of quote marks there, but say sort of in the title, because obviously in headline polling and national polling, he's still a couple of points behind. Or was at the time of writing, but it's in that chance of winning in November, Nate Silver stuff, and that's flipped.
That's where he's winning.
Yeah, exactly. You see similar stuff. I guess you could also use Predict It and Polymarket,
which we do as well.
We do, actually. Maybe we could lean a bit more into those. I think maybe the Nate Silver criticism is valid in that particular video, the Trump sort of overtaking Harris in the polls, although I think we do actually cite Polymarket and Predict It
we
in
definitely
that one
do.
as well. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to keep using the Silver stuff either way, basically. We'll try and use other ones as well, but I'm not going to stop using the Silver stuff. Anyway, but so the criticism in that video, actually, maybe given that we use those other sort of metrics, maybe isn't entirely valid. I think the other criticism in that particular video is that we're too zoomed in, you know what I mean? Like, why are we doing a whole 8 minutes on, sure, a big fluctuation, who has the chance of winning in November, but fundamentally like a 2-point swing bet at max in the polls? I think there's probably two reasons. I mean, I take that point, and I take the more general point, definitely, that we shouldn't just be doing like poll updates.
Yeah, you don't want
every
constant
week,
cameras up,
if nothing,
Trump's down, whatever.
Yeah, but I think the reason, even though it's only a 2-point swing, that we did that is for two reasons. I mean, one, it translates to this big difference in winning the Electoral College, because it's around that tipping point.
It massively swung to that Electoral College model.
If you take that modelling seriously.
Of course.
But then also, I think it was a sort of good corrective to parts of the sort of media and the online vibes that some of the narrative had sort of come to I don't know, there was a sense at least on parts of the internet that a Harris victory was feeling quite inevitable. And the Harris campaign themselves have tried to dissuade potential voters of that notion. They've been saying, look, we are the underdogs. We don't want you to just sort of assume that this momentum is going to carry us to 400 electoral college votes or whatever. And so those were the two reasons. First it was the way that it affected the actual odds of winning in November, but then also I think it was a sort of effective counterpoint to the sense, at least in parts of the internet world, that Harris' victory had become inevitable, which I think it was waning, that sense, but there definitely, like in the days before the video, there was still parts of the Twitter commentariat that was going, sort of very enthusiastic and like, this is just, Trump is done, he's an old man. And I think that was a useful corrective. And I think it was sort of validated by some of the polling that came out recently. I mean, especially the New York Times Siena College poll that gave Trump a 1-point lead nationally with, well, they use likely voters, but it's sort of weighted according to how likely it was. But anyway, the point there is, the fact that there was some well-regarded polling that came out later that suggested that actually Trump or Harris's lead had narrowed and actually reversed according to the New York Times one, I think sort of validates the premise of the video, which came out the day before that polling.
Okay.
Yeah, it was quite a long-winded way of it. But
sure.
I think I understand the anxieties about relying too heavily on civil polling, and in general, I am sympathetic to that point about not just doing poll updates on every percentage point movement. I do think that video was justified. So I'm not going to apologise controversially for anything that I know.
Whoa.
I apologise maybe for the potential over-reliance on the silver polling, and I will aspire to balance my sources in the future.
Okay, great. Let's move to the UK channel then. Home base.
Nice, let's do it. So
what's going on there? It's normally not as controversial as global.
There's normally basically nothing, isn't there?
What's happened?
So just to give, just put in context, there are 5 videos.
Whoa.
5.
In 3 weeks?
Yeah, even less than 3 weeks.
Just about.
Oh, just about. I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff for the UK
Crazy.
Video. So do you want to start with the most recent one or the, you know what I mean?
Let's start oldest newest.
Okay, so oldest. So the first one is why the UK economy is doing surprisingly well. Now, this has about 95%, not bad. It is just simply because, I don't want to be too dismissive, but lots of those videos that do surprisingly well. So this video got 300,000, 350,000.
Yeah.
They long have lower dislike just because they sort of reach a wider audience, which is sometimes not as loyal as we're very grateful to you guys, the diehard fan base. But it's
not even necessarily loyalty, I don't think. I think it's that regular viewers, like the core audience of, maybe it is loyalty, but to kind of explain what I think you mean by that, or my interpretation of what happens there, is that the core viewers are much more likely to just like TLDR videos because they want to algorithmically feed it. And when you reach the wider audience, you reach the people that then, like, do you like the average video on YouTube that you enjoy? No. Do you dislike videos you dislike? Yes, I dislike way more videos than I like on YouTube.
Yeah, when I said loyalty, I wasn't trying to imply that we are sort of getting like arbitrary likes, do you know what I mean? Or that
I think we are a little bit.
I think it depends what you mean by arbitrary, but I basically agree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
I think I was just using it as shorthand.
As you get to the wider pool, people are more engaged to dislike than like.
Yeah, the bastards. Yeah.
That's why we need you to be
like
ravenously loyal.
Apart from you new editorial viewers, go away.
What are you doing?
Not for you. This is for the fans. We look so. This is going to be even lowered like this. Like we're going to have to like meta editorialize. Yeah. We look so silly matching. I just looked at the screen.
We do.
We look ridiculous. And it's not even. We were both in shorts last time, and now we both. It's just getting weird.
We were told to put our big boy pants on, and we did.
We did. We got insecure. The new editorial guys got us. Whoa. They said they didn't like the pegs.
Sorry. You were saying it reached a larger audience, so therefore was likely to. Get more dislikes just by default.
And then also, often the ex-economy doing surprisingly well videos pushback from people saying like, well, it's not actually.
Sure, I'm not surprised. I knew.
Well, either normally not, they're not surprised.
Oh.
It's normally that they're Brits basically saying like, no, my economic situation is terrible.
Which
we had a
is
similar thing with
yeah,
Spain and Italy,
yeah.
which we both did quite similar videos on the EU, where people saying like, no, it's not better. And I guess I take that point. It depends how you interpret the title, doesn't it? Surprisingly well. I mean, the actual content of that video says surprisingly well relative to analyst expectations and recent historical performance.
No,
So-
that's not the title of that video.
No, but it's in the actual content of the video.
Oh, I see. I thought you
But
said
that's
that was
what
the
we mean
actual
by
title.
surprisingly well. Yeah, yeah. That's if I was in charge of this business, that's exactly what it would be. But yeah, so that I take that. I mean, I don't think I'm going to apologise for anything there. I think that the title is sufficiently accurate to the actual content, or sufficiently close to the actual content to justify itself. But yeah, I think that's what happened essentially. I don't think there's anything to apologise for though. Anyway, next one on the list. Why has Starmer's approval rating tanked? Now, 94%, very low for the UK.
That is
Again, pretty good video, 250, 260. So probably reached a slightly wider audience. A lot of people, what it seems to me is I think a lot of people are sort of off the back of the riots.
Sorry,
What are you giggling
I
at?
just looked at you and thought we're wearing the same thing again. I just got distracted. Sorry. This needs to be cut.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Yeah, I keep this. This is good. This is great. But then I think a lot of people were saying that we weren't talking enough about the two-tier Keir and the response to the riots and all this sort of stuff that, frankly, was very big on Twitter. But I think it's worth stressing to people that like that sort of discourse had real purchase online about two-tier Keir and two-tier police and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying it's not a real issue. I mean, I think we did talk in our original riots video quite in depth actually about the two-tier policing accusations. But I think that doesn't actually explain it in the UK context, because it actually in the wider British public, that discourse just really didn't have that much purchase. Not no purchase, but polling basically done by opinion on how the public thinks Starmer reacted to the riots is overwhelmingly positive, despite that he makes some quite tough decisions. So you know, it's not like only 30% disapprove, and more well over 40% approve. And so that I don't think that, and those are pretty good numbers by politicians' standards.
Sure.
And so I don't think that necessarily does much to explain why the polling is tended. It doesn't really line up with the timing. The timing was more recent than the riots. And actually the polling done around the riots found his approval rating was lower than like the honeymoon period, but actually still okay. It's dropped quite significantly in the week since. And I don't think that is to do with the riots specifically. I think it's, and I don't know how much, we can't really remember exactly what we say in the video, but I think that's quite a lot more to do with some of the stuff about taxes, basically. I think that's, if we're talking specific policies, I do think that the tax raises are the things that are the least popular in the electorate. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It also matches the timing better. So I don't think we have much to apologise for there either. This is an interesting one. I think we're going to have to be very honest about this one. And I think it's going to be slightly embarrassing for us, but I think this is the point of the editorial.
Yeah, it is.
So it just, you know.
And we already told everyone to go away, so hopefully no one's watching.
Ritual humiliation. Scotland drug crisis explained.
Oh no.
95.6%. Not bad, but considering that video got 70,000 views,
Yeah.
pretty appalling. That's
Which is
the
also really worth
audience.
addressing, because one of the lowest viewerships this year.
Well, I don't think I don't want to, that's another remit for the editorial.
Sure.
Where
Oh, okay.
adding responsibility.
So, okay, sorry, we're not.
It's our already packed schedule. But that video, I think we should just be honest. That was a repurposed video from quite a long time ago that we've had in the bank for a while, like 3 years now. 4
Yes. No, it can't be 4, surely.
3 years? I think it's good 3 years. Someone wrote it a very long time ago. Ben wrote it a very long time ago.
On a fact check.
And we didn't animate at the time and the capacity. And
No, I think we did animate it at the time.
we didn't release it at the
We
time.
never released it. I think the original version is still sat on our unlisted YouTube.
Anyway, we had some spare animated capacity in the week, and we decided to repurpose the video. We thought it was sort of sufficiently evergreen to merit doing a new video. Ben updated some of the stats. I think I actually just have to apologize for this video. I have to take responsibility. I didn't actually have much of a role in it, but I am the editor, so I have to take responsibility. Yeah, I'm just sorry for this one, because what I think fundamentally happened is that actually the quality of our videos has just got better over the past couple of years, and it was just a sort of like, it was of the sort of, I don't know, the sort of quality of a 2020, 2021 TLDR video.
September 2021.
And it just turns out that's actually quite bad. I think that's, I don't know, I think it's an
No.
apology. I am sorry, I really am. I think it was not up to scratch. There was nothing necessarily wrong. I think some of the writing was confusing in places. But I just think it was quite information light. And maybe that's unfair. But you read it and you did notice, I don't know how else to just describe this, but a change in quality, a sort of lack of quality. And so I think I should just apologize for that. And I think that's a lesson to us not to sort of hastily repurpose old videos. So apologies for that. And I hope it wasn't too rubbish for anyone.
Yeah, I think we hoped that it would be better than it was, and then maybe turns out we've improved a lot. That's the up.
Yeah, that's the upside to this.
In the
Yeah.
last 3 years, we improved a lot, so therefore Scotland Drugs wasn't up to standard.
Not the one.
Which, I mean, also Scotland Drugs has become like a phrase in the office.
If your video gets Scotland drugs, it's not coming out.
We regularly say about videos being a Scotland Drugs kind of video, one that gets like bumped a couple times.
Well, it's
The
just gone.
writer jokes that it's being Scotland Drugs. Turns out we un-Scotland Drugs, and maybe we shouldn't have done.
Nah, we made a
Shouldn't have
mistake.
left it Scotland Drugs.
So then we have, this one didn't actually have a low dislike ratio, and a massive namaste to Rosie, because it's a really good video otherwise, but it's my bad. Will Labour actually introduce a 4-day working week? 96.6. We cite a lot of studies in there. Again, big namaste to Rosie.
Margin.
Just above, yeah, exactly. Still, there was a mistake.
Yeah.
But a lot of those studies basically refer to proper 4-day working week, not compressed hours. So 4 8-hour days as opposed to 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8-hour days.
Which is quite different, I guess.
They are quite different. I mean, you would expect that lots of the benefits that you find in 4 8-hour day work weeks to
Yeah.
translate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at least from the employer's perspective, you're getting more productive. I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's the whole point of those 8-hour things. But if you're getting more productivity over 4 8-hour days, you wouldn't expect it to fall off if you're going to 4 10-hour work days. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But we didn't make that clear, and
Yeah.
we obfuscated, we sort of equivocated between those two things. One is a proper 4-day working week, and one is compressed hours.
Yeah.
So that's just our bad. My apologies. That's just the sort of mistake we shouldn't be making. So I am really sorry about that. And yeah, I can only apologise. That's my slip entirely. And then road pricing. Why road pricing could be Starmer's next crisis. 96%, not bad. What I would say about this video is I think it does a very, very good job of describing the state of the debate in the UK at the moment. But what it probably fails, and lots of people are disliking this or complaining because they just don't like
Sure.
the idea of the government taxing them.
Which always happens.
Fair enough, and that probably explains most of the dislike ratio. I think this video though does a very, very good job of explaining the state of the debate and why, at least from a UK politician's perspective, certain ways of sort of like filling the fiscal deficit created by the decrease in fuel duty incurred by the uptake of electric cars are politically unpalatable. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't zoom out and sort of like ask a slightly wider question about like, wait a second, you know, like, why is our natural response to a sort of decline in revenues from like one tax to just go like, well, hey, let's find another clever tax to go in there. We had a sort of conversation about this in the office. And it is mentioned in the video that the video does consider just raising income tax, but it says something it would be unfair. I think it's probably true to say that it'd be perceived as unfair by at least parts of the electorate. It doesn't really zoom out and go like, isn't this just a bit weird to be fundamentally taxing something we want people to start doing? You know, we want people to pick up electric vehicles. Let's just tax them. It's just a bit weird, and I think that I don't think there's a criticism in the video per se. But there is, you might want a video like that to zoom out and ask a slightly bigger question about the state's attitude to taxation and the sort of constant over-complexifying of the tax regime.
Yeah.
Which is fair, and I think some people did want that. And I don't think it's something to apologise for necessarily. I think it's more of a sort of oversight than an error. But just to be on the general side of apologies, I will apologise. I'm sorry about that. But I think that is sort of how I would frame some of the dissatisfaction in that video apparent by the like-dislike ratio. So that is everything on UK.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's everything on UK, EU, and global.
Yeah. Business, the no controversial videos, they always have a lower like-dislike ratio just because I think the core audience is smaller, and then also those videos normally do quite well at the moment, so they sort of reach that wider audience, but they're all like 95 plus, and that's fine.
Nothing notable.
And I haven't seen any errors in them. Maybe someone can correct me, but I haven't seen any errors, and I guess that just leaves
The editorial.
the editorial.
So the last 2 episodes.
This is just a gimmick. I mean, how long are we going to talk about this?
At least half the episode. We barely started. The last 2 episodes of the editorial have done
That was a weird laugh.
surprisingly well.
Yeah, because you keep on thumbing them so aggressively. You know what I mean?
Nice thumbnails.
They do have nice thumbnails. Yeah, but the thumbnails, I don't want to, we guess it's going to be a funny argument to have it in public. The thumbnails aren't necessarily representative of the actual content. I mean, the far right one, the title isn't representative of the content, not in a rude way. Is the TLDR biased against the far right? And we answer that indirectly.
That's kind of true.
Yeah, but it's more about the definitions of the far right that we use.
That's the accusation is that we're biased against
Sure.
the far right.
And we're justifying our use of the term.
Yeah.
But I think it's slightly different.
Sure.
And then the
thumbnail
thumb,
does look like-
you're far right and I'm far left.
I'm having some kind of debate.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like the
I
Charlie
have to put
Kirk, 25 liberal students versus one
Exactly
conservative.
right. That is exactly the model I was aiming for.
We should do a group editorial like that, do you know what I mean? Where I try
very
and justify, and it's like 8 of you.
I like that. Good idea.
I actually don't know why I suggested that. It sounds like a terrible experience.
So yeah, both of them have got more views. And that doesn't mean they'll get more dislikes, but it is just funny that the last 2 editorials have both done, not very well obviously, but they've both done better than the main podcast that came out the same week.
Yeah, what are we going to thumb this one? Title this one?
I've been thinking about it, I've got some spicy ideas.
Can I hear them?
Well, I'm thinking either something about like bias in the US, that would do well.
That's good.
Or TLDR's killing 3 reasons, which is kind of true but not.
Yeah.
And also very meta.
That's good.
Or one about the editorial
Meta.
exploding, like a meta editorial.
Meta editorial, nice. I don't know why we're thumbing. Do we want these to do well? I mean, why do we want them to do well? I mean, we like views anyway, don't we?
We want them to do well because the fact we do the editorial, we think is a net benefit to our community and to like the YouTube journalism space as a whole. We think it's good that people should be accountable. So I guess that's why we want people to watch it. Really, from a business perspective, we don't want people to watch it, if you're being really honest, because all we're doing is flagging mistakes we're making, which undermines the business.
No, I don't think that's
to
true.
some extent.
Yeah, but I think in the aggregate, we're flagging mistakes and apologising for them and sort of hopefully explaining
I
what we're
think
going to
it's
do
kind
better.
of net neutral.
Okay.
We want the editorial to exist, and we want.
Do you think it betrays our amateurism?
But we don't want, lots of people looking and thinking, oh, these are.
Yeah, imagine if the whole the whole global audience
Exactly.
realised it was
If they
just
spot
2
this-
goons in cords.
So I guess the objectives are mixed. I'm just doing thumbnails.
We've got matching socks as well.
Yeah, we do.
God, it's all over the place.
The objectives are mixed. I guess it's just that the instinct of me as a thumbnail maker.
It's good
is
practice.
I do it for every other video, so
Yeah.
why wouldn't I do something that I think people can want to click on? And maybe we continue that. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I think it's quite fun anyway. I mean, I don't want to get too deep about it.
It's a fun competition against the main podcast.
It is fun, and there is a bit of ego here. I am quite smug that
This
our
is why you've not been on the main podcast.
weird
for a
little
while.
navel gazing is somehow outperforming genuine conversations about British politics.
Anyway, that's not even
Anyway.
relevant at this point, because the fact they got more views isn't what we're talking about. The fact that they're both.
Because we don't want to expand their remit.
We don't want to.
We're not the ECB. That's a niche joke. Give me Have I Got News for You?
That is good.
Yeah.
Very specific.
Yeah, it is good.
Anyway, the reason we're discussing it is because both of them have a like-dislike ratio that falls below the regular like-dislike ratio to discuss.
So they're both about like 95.5.
So the first one is the
Elon
video
Musk.
About Elon Musk. What is the reason for that, Arisa?
It's just that every Elon Musk video we do, and we said it in the thing, we said every Elon Musk video falls below the threshold, and then true to form.
Forever ago, we did a game in the office. We didn't tell anyone.
Can I just say, I love when the editorial gets like past like 15, 20
yes.
minutes, and we just assume no one is watching.
Do you remember we used to do a game in the office? It was a secret game that every day someone would come up with a poll we could do on Twitter, and the game was
Yeah.
you'd get exactly
Yes.
split. And the winner got £50.
And I came so close, and I had a good question, and everyone else had a rubbish question. Sorry, that sounds really arrogant. I didn't mean like that, but then the winner was something like, what's a baguette is tastiest, or something like that, ham or cheese. It was something.
It wasn't.
It was something nearly that apolitical. It was anyway.
We used to do that game to see if we could get a poll on Twitter to land dead in the middle. I think we should try and implement a similar challenge to see if anyone on any channel can make an Elon Musk video which hits target. He has to be in the thumbnail and it has to hit target. So you can't just suck up to Elon because then regular people will get kick off. And clearly the contingent of Elon fans is big enough that if you don't suck up to him enough, it'll be a fascinating game. Can we ever have an Elon video that doesn't land on the editorial? I think the answer is no. So that's one of them. The other one, the far right, far left, people clearly had issue with that too. What was the... I mean, it's kind of obvious what the take is, but like, they just disagree with your analysis, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably is it. I mean, I think some of it, as I say in the video, I think some of it is just that it's going to be my conclusion is going to be fundamentally unsatisfactory. It just always was going to be like I was never going to. I don't want to rehash this too much, but I think if you clicked on that video hoping for like a concrete answer, you know, like either me being like, no, you know. Nazis they're all Nazis and they're all bad, or me being like, yes, the far right speaks for the people or whatever, then yeah, you're going to be disappointed because, and even if you're sort of not quite that hardline, but you wanted a more concrete answer, a more substantial answer, you also be disappointed because all I basically do is sort of outline different ways of defining the terms and then say, we're still going to use them because we think they have sort of descriptive utility. We're going to try and couch them more in descriptions of policy. For context, by the way, we're doing a video on Schengen, and I think we do that. Instead of talking about sort of far-right positions on immigration, we actually describe certain immigration policies proposed by the AFD, the BSW, and the CDU. Yeah, I think if you clicked on that expecting a more concrete answer, I think probably quite a lot of audience our audience leans left, I think it's fair to say, and I think probably quite a few of them would have been disappointed by my equivocating, which I get. I can't really give you more than that, and that is my take. It's just that it has some descriptive utility, so we're going to continue using it. We'll probably try and caveat it a bit more aggressively, but I don't think you can come up with satisfying, sort of necessary sufficient conditions for the use of that term. Yeah, so I think there's probably that. I do think that's probably the main thing there. It also just did well. It's on like 25,000 views.
Which is silly.
Yeah, and I think if you clicked on that thinking that it was going to be a sort of far left skinhead versus a little far right soy boy having a real go,
Didn't even think of that.
you'd have been
I
disappointed.
put the labels over the wrong heads.
Yeah, I think you would have got a lot more.
Yeah.
That's that one. I think those are the main explanations. I think sometimes people also don't like the way we talk. We get this in lots of editorials, and I think this is like a recurring thing. People don't like the way we talk about like the thumbnails. We always say that we have to justify relatively clicky thumbnails, and there's always this balancing act between integrity and then the clickbaitiness of a thumbnail. And I don't think that we've gone over this territory so many times in the past, but we have to make the thumbnails a bit clicky. It just turns out that they do work, and the degree to which the title can be clickbaity before it becomes sort of unwarranted. Again, I'm not going to come up with a satisfactory answer to that. It's a difficult line to toe. Sometimes we do go over it, and we definitely go too far in the clickbaitiness, and then we try and apologize on these ones. And I think sometimes what happens is, a video goes slightly under the like-dislike ratio, and we say it's probably because of the thumb or title. And then I say, well, I don't really regret that, though. I still think that was the clickbait was merited. The video did well enough. We got out to people. I think that's like a recurring issue. And I don't think it's resolvable necessarily. I think some people will always be disappointed by the fact that we need to use clickbait, but we do. And it's a sort of the slightly sad reality of YouTube, and I think more fundamentally human psychology. You just do have to trick people into things And there are sort of intellectually acceptable ways of tricking people, clickbaiting stuff. Jinan Ganesh at the FT, good example of that. And maybe sometimes our clickbait feels cheap in some sense, but you're all playing the same game in lots of ways. Anyway, I don't want to get into that too much. We've talked about that so many times, but you see my point. I think that's a recurring issue in the editorial, and I think people will always be just sort of fundamentally unsatisfied with our take on that. I mean, I get that, but for commercial reasons, we have to clickbait a bit.
Yeah. Whew. Quite the editorial.
Was it? How long was that?
It felt long.
God, it was long actually, wasn't it?
How long was it?
40 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got time for then. Arguably more than we've got time for.
This one can't do well. It's way too long to
See you
do well.
again in 2 weeks. Well, we'll see 7 of you again. Everyone else, go away. It's on the core 7.
The editorial. Wait, no, sorry. I thought you were talking about. Delete that. Delete this. Scarlett. This goes. Yeah, exactly.